What is going on, everybody? So I am back today to talk about a new released documentary. I've been going to the theater a lot this year to watch a lot of new release movies, and I actually saw the trailer to this documentary a couple of times before movies I was seeing, and it looked incredibly interesting, like it was going to discuss some really poignant subject matter. And I was very excited to watch this film. I'm glad I was able to catch it in one of its first days that it was out in the theater. And the documentary I'm going to be discussing today is Everybody. Everybody is directed by Julie Cohen. Focuses on three intersex individuals who overcame shame, secrecy, and unauthorized surgery throughout their childhoods to enjoy successful adulthoods, choosing to ignore medical advice to conceal their bodies and coming out as who they truly were. So, as I said before, I watched the trailer for this. It looked incredibly fascinating, looked like it had some really pertinent information, and this documentary was incredible. I think it is so important for people to watch this. I think there's so much useful information in this, so much education that people can pull from it, and I'll talk a little bit about it today. So obviously, as the plot description states, we're introduced to three different intersex individuals who all give us their backstories in their childhoods and growing up, and how when they were all very young, that they all three had surgeries conducted on them when they were born without their consent. And what time period that was dependent on their specific set of circumstances. And you get information about like the parents and why they decided to make that decision, and how they were influenced by doctors, and how doctors throughout our history have said that these surgeries are necessary to make people quote unquote normal. And intersex individuals, for those of you out there who are unaware, the I in lgbtqia, intersex are people who are born with both sets of reproductive organs. Sometimes they're not fully formed. Sometimes there can be examples of people being born with internal testes, people being born with a vagina but without a uterus. There's all different kinds of sets of circumstances that intersex people can be born with, varying different genitalia and things of that nature. And intersex people, I believe the documentary says, make up 1.7% of our population, which, even though that number may seem small, it's still a large number of people in the United States. And because of the stigma, the negative stigma surrounding intersex individuals and how it's abnormal or strange or different, these doctors say very early on that, oh, well, this part of the genitalia is less prominent. So to give this child a quote unquote normal childhood, we're going to remove this part of them so that they can present more masculine or feminine. And so getting these three stories of three people who all come from very different circumstances, to give one specific circumstance, River, who is one of the people in the movie, they say that when they were young, they were raised as a boy. They were raised to be more masculine, but throughout their entire childhood, they did not feel like that was the bucket that they fit into. And then growing up and finding out about this surgery and that being taken away from you, it's horrifying because you're stripped of your individuality. You aren't given the ability to make that decision as an adult as to who you are. And so getting those stories was really eye-opening and enlightening. And then along with those three stories, we get the story of David Reimer, who, if you were unfamiliar with David Reimer's story, David Reimer was a twin that was born, and when he was being circumcised, the machine malfunctioned and it caused them to permanently damage his penis. And so the parents, with this Dr. John Money, who they discuss, who has been the predominant voice since the 60s in forcing these intersex surgeries, said, well, it's going to be easier for the family to just raise David as a girl. And so they essentially forced their child to be raised as a girl. But David very early on knew, I'm not a girl. This is not how I was born. They even said that he went as far as to pee standing up. And so you get this really horrifying story attached to these three intersex stories, where the overwhelming message that the film is going for is that people should be able to decide the life they want to have and who they identify as a person. And it's so beautifully presented, and the information is presented in a way that it is so easy to understand, and it's just explained at a level where any person should be able to watch this and understand that We live in a society right now that it's so scary and so horrifying for members of the LGBTQIA community because there's so much legislation against transgender individuals right now. And it's the inverse of intersex individuals, right? Intersex individuals from very early on are completely stripped of their bodily autonomy and said, you don't get to make that decision. Your parents are going to make that decision for you. Where transgender people who believe they were born in the incorrect body are now being told that they can't make the decision to get the surgeries that will allow them to feel like themselves. It's really horrifying and sad times that we live in. And so I think documentaries like this are so incredibly pertinent because at the core of all of this, if you strip everything away, what we're talking about here is human beings. We're talking about people who just want to live and thrive and be accepted and be looked at as who they are, which is, it's a beautiful thing when you can see a person for who they are and see them living their most authentic life that they can, and seeing these three intersex individuals coming to terms with who they are and embracing their identity. It was so beautiful and emotional and really just eye-opening. And River, who was one of the people in the documentary, is a director, a writer, a performer, and hearing their stories talking about how difficult it is for them to just get roles in acting because of who they are as a person. And that opens up an even larger conversation for the film industry and how, why are we writing scripts gendered? It makes absolutely no sense to me personally. I remember being in film school, I got into it with a lot of my professors about why do we write screenplays gendered unless it is pivotal to the story. If you're writing a story about a person with a uterus overcoming postpartum depression after having a child, or looking at a person in a marginalized group that's overcoming some kind of struggles, outside of those circumstances, I don't understand why we write scripts so gendered. A basic comedy can have anyone at the forefront and anyone leading unless it's like culturally relevant or very, very specific to those circumstances. And to know that intersex individuals already have that difficult time to find that kind of work was also really eye-opening and saddening. And to live in a society that is supposedly so progressive and moving in a direction where we are accepting people and trying to be better about caring about all individuals, I feel like most of the world is going in the wrong direction, and people really need to stand up and be a voice for these individuals, because like I said, it's 1.7% of the population, and while that might sound small to some people, it is a large amount of people that need a voice and they need a support. And documentaries like this are so incredibly important, and I'm glad that the word is getting out there. So essentially with my video, what I want to say is, if you get the opportunity, please go support this film in theaters. Show your support for people in the intersex community. Show that you want more documentaries like this where people who don't have a large voice can be heard, so that issues like this can be addressed, and that these horrible intersex surgeries for kids who can't make their own decisions can stop, because it's just disgusting. If people are being born like this, what is saying that that's abnormal and weird and strange? It clearly exists for a reason. These people exist for a reason. And so it's letting them be able to make the decisions that they want to make in their lives is so, so important. And that's all I wanted to say about it. But go watch this movie in the theater if you get a chance. It is absolutely wonderful. So have you seen Everybody? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was a beautiful documentary that was so well handled. It was filmed so well. The interviews were fantastic. It was so informational, and I would highly, highly recommend checking this out if it's in a theater near you. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.